International House of Pancake in Lawrence, Kansas. Now, this is a state that's famously known for being flat, so much so that in a national survey, they found that more Americans identified this as the country's flattest state than any other. When it comes to being flat, there's one phrase you'll hear a lot: flat as a pancake. But is it true that the state is actually as flat as a pancake? And how would you even test that? And what impact does a reputation like this have on a place? I do love when scientists take a silly question and back it up with some academic rigour, like the study that wanted to find out whether bigger or smaller animals took longer to pee. And the answer to that is, well, they're all about the same. But in this case, a group of academics wanted to answer the question, is Kansas really as flat as a pancake? So to do this, the first thing they did was buy a pancake from this very restaurant chain. And then they did some mathematical analysis. So after cutting a strip of pancake, they created a topographic profile using a confocal laser microscope. This was then compared to an east-west elevation model of Kansas. They then used a formula to find a flatness ratio. And that was a number between 0 and 1, where 1 is perfectly flat. And they calculated that the flatness of the pancake was approximately 0.957, compared to that of Kansas being 0.9997, which they described in their paper as damn flat. So their finding, Kansas is indeed flatter than a pancake. But this was far from the end of the research in this field. So this is the University of Kansas, which somewhat ironically looks over the hill towards the town of Lawrence. And it was right here that a pair of geographers, Dobson and Campbell, wanted to explore the idea of flatness of US states. So firstly, the question is how to measure flatness. For example, if you had a flat surface with one large mountain, is that more or less flat than one which has lower rolling hills? But for this study, the authors took a very interesting human approach. Now their idea was basically this. For each point, if there was a person looking out to the horizon, would they think it's flat? To do this, they found a previous model that said an observer can basically see around 5.31 kilometers. Now they defined flat as being in a place with no hills greater than 0.3 degrees tall. Basically, if you were standing there, you would look out and say, that's flat. And once they know this, they could define that point as being a binary, flat or not flat. They then applied this in 90-meter cells across the entire country. That was a huge undertaking. And the results would be surprising for most people, because as I mentioned before, there was a survey, and that asked Americans their knowledge of geography. And that found that 33% of people, including 29% of people from Kansas, thought that Kansas was the flattest state. Well, on this question, the vast majority of people got it wrong. It turns out that under this method, not only is Kansas not the flattest state in the country, it only comes in at number 7, being beaten out by Delaware, Minnesota, Louisiana, North Dakota, Illinois, and in number 1 place, Florida. Under pretty much any definition of flatness, with a maximum height of just 105 meters, Florida is the country's flattest. And that was something that only 23.3% of Americans guessed. But here's the thing, if we go back to our pancake study, it turns out that for a state to be less flat than a pancake, it would need a mountain more than 9,000 meters tall. And noting that Everest is less than this, it turns out that everywhere is pretty much flatter than a pancake. So why do so many people think that Kansas is so flat? Now there's a few theories here. One of them is the orientation. Now Illinois, which is the second flattest state, is much longer than it is wide, whereas Kansas is long axis is east to west. That means that drivers that are heading from coast to coast spend a lot longer driving through the vast plains of Kansas. So another reason is the type of terrain. So when you think of flat, you probably think of being able to see the horizon. So if there was a forest growing over flat land, I'm not sure that many people would describe it as being flat. And the same would apply to rivers and lakes. So I think that adds to Kansas's reputation. So does any of this matter? Well, the authors of the study certainly think so. Now, they believe that stereotypes can have impact. For example, being flat could be thought of as being boring, so that could impact tourism businesses. Well, the negative perceptions of these flyover country states makes it harder to recruit from institutions and businesses. So the lesson from this is maybe be a little bit skeptical when you hear theories about flat Earth or even flat pancakes. I'm Julian from the 7th flattest state in America.